One of the craziest mother-in-law sagas. When I say this lady is the definition of crazy, that's an understatement. Guys, I am so excited about this one. Let's get right into it. I'm 27 years old, a female. I've been married to my husband Max, who's 28, for 6 years, and we've chose to remain child-free, at least for now. We've discussed children on many occasions, but have always decided we like the lifestyle that we have, and would prefer to continue as we are. Neither of us are particularly keen on children, so it does not make sense to have children, but because we can. Unfortunately, not everyone agrees with our decision, and that's where the whole nightmare started. Max's mom is a devout Catholic, although she does not always act it. She picks and chooses which bits fits her life and views, and how she prefers to live her life. Unfortunately, she does tend to apply things to other people's life that she does not apply to her own, but that's a whole separate issue. When Max and I got married, mother-in-law was disappointed that I was not Italian-looking, like her family. I have blonde hair, blue eyes, and her family are all very Mediterranean-looking with dark skin, dark eyes, and curly dark hair. That's what drew me to Max. He's stunning, tall, dark, and handsome. At our wedding, she made a speech, and let me tell you, it was cringy, and mentioned that at least the family genetics were strong, so our children would look like, quote, the family. I think she thinks she comes from some mafia family or something. Even my father-in-law rolled his eyes at that one. He's a lovely man who supports Max and I in our decision to live childless. He told us his wife is obsessed with the whole Italian background and wanted a tribe of children. They have 2 sons. He puts his foot down and said 2 were plenty. My brother-in-law, Jacob, he's 25 and gay. He's been with his fiancée, Carl, for 4 years, and they're so much in love. It's really lovely, honestly. However, despite us trying to explain to mother-in-law that they can still have children, she does not believe it as it's against God's plans. Her words exactly. Again, a whole different issue with her. She still thinks that Jacob will, quote, grow out of his gayness. I think you get the idea of the insane, homophobic, crazy woman we're dealing with here. So, Max and I both have good jobs, and we're both able to work remotely, so we're not tied to an office, which gives us a lot of freedom. I'm a freelance writer and Max works in IT, fixing flaws with people's websites, etc., because we're not tied to one place. We often travel and we bought a camper van so we could explore the many beautiful places in this country. When we can, we like to go abroad as well, and we feel children will prevent us from living this life. We have a home where we spend extraordinary little time during the summer months, and we love our life. Despite the differences in our outlooks of life, we invite mother-in-law to stay with us regularly as family is important to Max. Father-in-law is not able to come as often as they run their own hardware store, and he just can't always get away. Mother-in-law always brings up her lack of children and likes to print out articles she's found about the joys of parenthood. Things changed dramatically during her last visit. 3 months ago, a new neighbor bought the house next to ours. Jenny is a single parent with 2 children. Sally is 6 and Lucas is 8. At first, I was worried that a family would spoil our quiet little life. But Sally and Lucas are lovely children, quiet and polite. They also look amazingly like Max. I'm not a jealous woman, but for one horrible moment I worried Max had either had an affair or fathered children before he met me. It only lasted a moment, and Max and I can laugh about it now. We get on really well with Jenny, and we have actually babysat for the kids a few times. We don't dislike children, we just don't want any of our own. Mother-in-law arrived for her first visit, and Sally and Lucas were in their garden, playing in the pool. When she saw them, she went quiet, and I assumed it's just because she was seeing what she wanted to see in our garden. If only it had been that simple. Well, later that day, she asked Max to go out for a drive and something to eat. She wanted to go just with Max for some mother and son bonding, and to be honest, I was happy to get her out of the house for a bit. They were gone about an hour, and when they got back, the atmosphere was different. It was obvious that they argued, and Max was stony-faced. Mother-in-law did not even talk to me, and she just stomped up to her room, slamming the door behind her. I was so confused and waited for Max to explain. When he did, I wish I could say I was surprised, but nothing about that woman surprises me at times. My mother-in-law looked at Sally and Lucas and thinks we've been hiding her grandchildren from her, out of spite. She genuinely believes that we had children before we got married, and we've been hiding them for her the whole time, paying another woman to raise them as we're, quote, too selfish to do it ourselves. Well, Max had asked her why they have not been in the house for long, if that was the case, and mother-in-law stated that we had obviously realized that we needed to be near our children, and had bought that house as well. I have no idea what she thinks we could get the money for that. Max has told her that unless she drops this ridiculous idea, she has to leave in the morning. She's locked in her room, so I guess we'll just have to see what the morning brings. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. This story has 5 updates. I hope you guys are having a great day. Let's go ahead and jump right into update number 1. I thought this would be on a one-off post of a rant about my insane mother-in-law, who I've nicknamed Mother Madness. But I decided to add this update about what happened this morning after Mother Madness accused us of hiding her grandchildren from her. We did not see her again last night, but we did hear her ranting on the phone to someone. I assume it was father-in-law or one of her crazy friends. Anyways, this morning she came down for breakfast and with her bags packed and told us father-in-law would be coming to pick her up. She said that she hoped we felt bad about hiding her grandchildren from her and lying about not having children for years. We both told her she was being ridiculous, and it was just a coincidence that Sally and Lucas resembled Max. I tried to lighten the mood by joking that I understood that it must have been a shock when I first saw them. I'd been amazed about how much they look like my husband. I'd even had a moment when I was worried that he cheated on me. I said it all lighthearted, and Max laughed with me, but Mother Madness yelled, "Well, maybe he has some sense did cheat on you. That's why you won't let my grandbabies live in this house with their father." I was appalled that she would even think like that. And I snapped back that wasn't adultery a sin in her eyes, and if so, how could she be happy about that? She yelled back that she would prefer that the sin of refusing to bring children who, quote, needed to be born into the world, and that was a sin that Jesus would never forgive us for. At this point, I was seriously starting to worry about her mental health. Max lost his temper and told her he would never cheat on me because he loved me and that he was glad she was leaving her as a toxic behavior was not welcome. We were also worried she would approach Jenny about the children. Whatever happened, we needed to keep a sharp eye on her and make sure she stays away from Sally and Lucas, as we did not want something traumatizing them for life. So, we yelled at each other the whole hour that it took my father-in-law to arrive. And my mother-in-law was insisting to him that they had to go and see their grandchildren before they left. Thankfully, Jenny had already left for work and the children are safely at school, so they were spared the trauma of my deranged Mother Madness. Knocking on the door, father-in-law tried to calm her down and hustled her into the car before coming back to talk to us. He apologized for her behavior, saying she was under a lot of stress and she was not thinking straight. He would talk to her when they got home and try and sort things out. Max made it very clear that she was not welcome back in her home until she saw sense, as he would not have our neighbor being disturbed by his mom's rantings. He also suggested his dad maybe gets his mom some kind of professional help, as she's clearly struggling with reality. Father-in-law nodded sadly and just waltzed back to his car. I've never seen him looking so dejected. We stood there and watched as they drove away, and although I'm angry with Mother Madness, I really do hope they get her some help. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. So that first update had a little sadness to the end. Now we're wondering if it has anything to do with mental health. Well, update 2 might answer some of those questions. If you're not subscribed to the channel, guys, click that subscribe button right now directly under the video so you never miss any future updates, and let's see what's going on with Mother Madness. It's been a week since my father-in-law came and picked up my mother-in-law, and we've not heard anything directly from her. But we've heard a lot about her indirectly. A couple days after she left, we got a phone call from Jacob, asking us what the hell was going on, as mother-in-law had called him ranting about hidden grandchildren. We explained the situation to him, and he found it hilarious. Jacob and Max are really close, and Jacob would never doubt Max's loyalty to me. They both grew up with their mom's weird behavior, and Jacob has to deal with a lot of her, quote, religious opinions on his lifestyle over the years. He said we should probably check mother-in-law's social media because she was ranting a lot. Max and I do not really use the same social media, as mother-in-law, she posts a lot of religious quotes and her opinions just infuriate us. So we just avoid looking, but now we needed to see what she was posting. It turned out that it's amazing how much one deranged woman can post in a week. You would think that Max and I had turned into the devil himself, the way she was portraying us. I think it's easier to just copy some of her posts so you can get an idea of how her level of crazy is. Quote, what do you do when your son betrays both you and Jesus? How could the fruit of my body turn out so evil? Quote, does any know a lawyer who deals with hidden grandchildren? This was a favorite of mine, as some of the comments were confused as to why people would be hiding children. And there were comments saying, what, like hide and seek? At this point, no one seemed to grasp what she was getting out, and they assumed the betrayer was Jacob for daring to be gay. When people were not grasping what she was saying, she went full out. She wrote a long Facebook post about it. It's so long to copy. But the general points were that Max and I had children, but we've given our babies away because we were following internet trends and wanted to be child-free and avoid responsibility. She went on to say that she had discovered her beautiful grandchildren as a result of her investigations. She walked out into the back garden and there they were, and she felt betrayed that we would deprive her of a chance to know her babies. She then went into great detail about how when she discovered the quote truth, we kicked her out from our home and never had her return. We were obviously ashamed that we've been discovered, and we're still pretending that we're not the parents of the children who were obviously her sons. What amazed me is that not one of her friends questioned the truth of her statements. Nearly every comment was about how awful the situation was. How selfish we were for not only giving our children away, but also refusing a loving grandmother to have a relationship with them. Mother-in-law backed this up by saying how she would have been able to forgive us if we've been honest and admitted that we've done. She made another big post about how she would happily raise our grandchildren rather than them live with a stranger. Max and I discussed what to do, and I wanted to call her out on her post. Max said that it would be better to ignore her. She would just play the martyr if we called her out. He did, however, suggested we talk to Jenny about it. How would we not put it past his mom to try to contact her about the children? In the end, we decided against it because so far, mother-in-law had not said where the hidden grandchildren were, and there seemed no need to draw someone else into this nightmare. We're going to ignore things and just let it fizzle out. Update number 3. Well, it did in fact fizzle out. So we decided we would have to be proactive about the whole situation. Max spoke to his father and they agreed that we needed to have a family meeting about the situation. Mother-in-law had been posting continuously about the hidden children since she went home, but she never mentioned where they were. People asked her and she always avoided the issue, saying she did not want to risk us moving the children and hiding them somewhere else if everyone knew where they were. It did not make a lot of sense as we had been hiding children from her and wanted to make sure she never found them. We wouldn't have moved them once we knew she had discovered the truth. We traveled to Max's parents' house, booking into a hotel as there's no way I was going to stay in the same house as mother-in-law. If things went badly, which I fully expected them to, We also invited Jacob for support. He arrived with his partner Carl, and so I felt like we were not on our own. We went to mother-in-law's house for dinner and the meeting, and she suggested a restaurant, but that was not happening. When we arrived, we got a bit of a shock, as she invited her priest. However, it turned out to be a good thing, as he was the most reasonable person in the room, as tempers flared and all the pent-up resentment were thrown towards each other. We explained that we did not have children. We were not planning on having children, and she had no right to be publicly accusing us of hiding her grandchildren. I said I was even prepared to get my medical records to show that I've never been pregnant or given birth. She argued that I was not proof, as she did not believe the documents anyways. They were, in her opinion, too beautiful to have me as a mother. How did I not throw my plate of food at her head is beyond me. Father-in-law said he tried reasoning with her, but it was to no avail. That was when the priest came into his own. He started to talk to mother-in-law about how things she was saying were not appropriate for a woman, as devoted to God as she was. I resisted the urge to laugh, I'm not kidding. And well, that she was harming her relationship with her children, which was not something God would approve of. He asked her if she had any proof that the children she's never seen were her grandchildren, or if it was just a gut instinct. I resisted the urge to say it was a figment of her deranged imagination, as it probably would not have helped. He said that he believed that Max and I had offered everything reasonable to prove that the children were not ours, and he thought that mother-in-law was feeling depressed because she wanted grandchildren so badly that she was seeing things that she wanted to see, rather than the truth. I have to admit, that man was good. By the end of his speech, he had convinced mother-in-law to have therapy with a therapist he knew, and to make peace with Max and I. Mother-in-law cried a lot and wailed about how she just wants grandchildren before she dies. She's 52, not exactly at death's door. We left with the promise that she would let the matter drop and we would start to rebuild our relations. As we left, the priest followed us out and said he would look after mother-in-law, and said that she got the help that she needed. He's going to make sure of it. He added that we should consider having children, as it was the role given to us by Jesus. We said, no, dude, not happening, but thanks for the help, and left hopeful that the nightmare would be over. All we can do now is see what happens. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. If you think that was the end of the story, you haven't seen many of my stories, have you? The next update came out 3 months after the priest meeting, and guys, sit back with your favorite ice-cold beverage because this one is about to go bonkers. It's been 3 months since I last posted, and dear God, things have gone to hell. I'm not sure one update will be enough for this train wreck that followed the meeting at my in-laws. I'll update a catch-up for now and go from there. At first, things seemed to improve. Mother-in-law went to therapy with people from her church, and she really seemed to turn a corner about the situation. She wrote us a letter about how she had made a mistake and, in her pain, her words, at being deprived of grandchildren, she had focused on a dream of what could be. She apologized for the harm she had caused, as she now knew she had been wrong about the whole situation. She asked for a chance to come stay with us so she could make peace with the situation. 2 comments at this point. She lied, as she's incredibly good at it. This woman fooled us all. She fooled father-in-law. She fooled her priest. And she fooled us. She fooled us so well, in fact, that we invited her to stay with us for a few days to talk and heal from the fighting that happened. She also deleted all the posts from her social media. With hindsight, the replacement post was not as innocent as it sounded, but we just wanted to believe she was changed for the better. She said that she was wrong to make our family issue public, and would deal with things differently in the future. We read that as her wanting to make amends and saying she accepted she was wrong. What we could never have expected was what really happened. She came and stayed with us, and well, things went really well. We went out for trips, ate out in the evenings, and she spoke to Jenny next door and introduced herself to the children without any hint that she was anything but a friendly neighbor. We believe that for the whole 5 days she stayed with us, she'd even driven herself here, which was unheard of. Normally, she made father-in-law drive her everywhere. It was lovely to have an enjoyable time with her, instead of that normal accusations of ruining her life. We waved her off on the final day and praised ourselves on fixing the relationship. The following day, Jenny asked us to look after the children while she went to work, and we agreed. It was a lovely Sunday, and the children were happy to play in the garden, so it was not really work. Everything was going well until I went to call them in for lunch, and they were not in the garden. I called them until my voice was hoarse, but they were gone. I've never been so scared in my whole life. 2 children vanished in front of my eyes. I'd seen them 10 minutes before I went to call them in, and now they're gone. Max told me to calm down, and we went to their house to see if they've gotten bored and just went home. But there's no sign of them. Now we're both in full-on panic, and while Max phoned Jenny at work, I called the police. The next hour or so passed in a blur of questions and tears as we went over and over what we had done that morning. I swore that I've seen them 10 minutes before they disappeared, and we had been checking on them regularly all morning. Jenny, to give her credit, told the police that we were good people, and she did not doubt for 1 minute that we've been looking after her children. It was about that time I had a sinking feeling that I knew what happened. I saw it in my head play out. I looked over at Max, and he saw the look in my eyes. He pulled me to one side and told me not to say what I was thinking out loud, as it cannot be true. His mother had gone home 2 days before she had recovered. There was no way she would have taken the children, right? I was not as confident and told Max to phone his dad. Once we knew that mother-in-law was at home and had not left, then I would relax and not mention her belief that we were hiding her grandchildren. So, Max waddled off to call his father, and I stayed with Jenny. I realized that we were wrong to not tell Jenny about the issues with my mother-in-law, and it sunk in that reason I've not told her was because I did not want her to think we were anything like mother-in-law. Well, 10 minutes later. 10 minutes later, Max caught my eyes from the back door, and I excused myself. As I walked towards him, my heart sunk. His face was ghost white, and his eyes looked empty. He shook his head, and took a deep breath and said, "She never went home. We need to tell the police everything." Mother-in-law had phoned father-in-law and told him we were having such an enjoyable time and she was staying just a few more days. It seems that she's planned this from the start. She'd spend days convincing us she was over this whole hidden grandchildren thing. Then in reality, she was worse than ever. She'd driven away that morning, knowing we would be babysitting that day. We did not know at this stage how she managed to convince them to get in the car with her. That would all come out later. All we knew at this stage was that there was a strong chance that Max's mother had kidnapped Jenny's children, thinking they were her grandchildren. We explained everything to the police and Jenny, who looked at us in disgust that we had not told her or explained to her that our mother-in-law was staying with us, thinking her children were ours. The police agreed that we should have dealt with the situation completely differently, and we had to admit they were right. Our only consolation at this point was that if they children were with mother-in-law, then she believed that she had her grandchildren, and we were hoping, pleading, she wouldn't hurt them. I'll end this update here as it's getting long, and an update again when I have the right mindset to type the fallout from this situation. Well, guys, this is the moment we've been waiting on. This is update 5, and it's the final update of the story. Wow. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stories like this with complete updates, and let's see what's going on with mother-in-law. I wasn't sure if I had the mental strength to finish this. I feel as though we've handled everything in the worst possible way, and 2 children suffered for it. My mother-in-law needed real help, not just a church group talking to her. Once we talked to the police about things that had happened with mother-in-law, they put out information about her and her car, and said it was only a matter of time before they found her. Jenny refused to talk to us and made it clear that her opinion had changed, and she's now very strongly believing that we were partially to blame for what happened to her children. We desperately called father-in-law and Jacob to find out if they've heard anything from mother-in-law, but she had gone into hiding. A few hours later, when the police came back to say that they found mother-in-law's car parked up at the train station, so she'd obviously known we would put two and two together and ditched her car. The train station is a central line, and she could have gone anywhere. I've never felt so helpless in my whole life. Whilst everything seemed hopeless, we did not take into account that mother-in-law's mental health was causing her to not think straight. She seemed to honestly believe that she'd had rescued her grandchildren from living with a stranger, and parents, Max and I, who just simply did not care. The social media post started again that evening. At first, it was just text posts saying that she was finally reunited with her beloved grandchildren and that she would never let them go back to their neglectful parents. It was not much, but it gave the police something to work with. They encouraged Max to reply to the post, asking her to bring the children back. She refused and said she was never bringing them back. Well, guys, she then made the biggest mistake yet. Posted a bunch of photos with her, quote, grandchildren who looked lost and confused. My heart just broke for them. They were stuck in a strange place with a woman who thought they were her grandchildren. Luckily, the police were able to trace the post and alerted the local police that mother-in-law was there with two kidnapped children. 4 hours is all it took, and we got the confirmation to say she's been arrested and the children were safe. She never once gave up the assertion that they were not Jenny's children, but belonged to Max and I, and she was simply rescuing them. Sally and Lucas came home the next morning, but within hours, Jenny left for her parents and never came back. I don't blame her at all for wanting to get away from us and the family. Mother-in-law was charged with kidnapping, and because she refused to plead guilty, it had to go to trial. In the time it took her case to come to court, we went through so many emotions. We'd given the DNA samples to prove once and for all that Sally and Lucas were not our children. Mother-in-law went through masses and masses of mental health assessments, and father-in-law closed his business to get away from the gossip in town. He's been staying with us ever since. A lot of things happened that I won't bore you with, but in the end, mother-in-law's lawyer convinced her to accept a plea deal to just avoid trial. They managed to get psychiatrists to show that mother-in-law had unresolved mental health issues, and so went for a plea deal of guilty, with, of course, mitigating circumstances of temporary insanity. We were in court when that happened, and Jenny did not look happy, as it meant that mother-in-law was given a minimum 3-year sentence to be served in a mental health institution, rather than in prison, which is what she wanted. The sentence is dependent on mother-in-law responding to treatment and overcoming her delusions. It would seem that she suffered from these conditions her whole life, but no one noticed and just thought she was a strange woman. We're now trying to move on with our lives. Jenny wrote us a letter after the conviction saying that she would not be returning to the house, and that she would never forgive us or mother-in-law for what her children went through. Max and I are more convinced than ever that we did not bring children into this train wreck of a family, and now all we can do is wait and see if mother-in-law responds to treatment, or she could be looking at a long-term psychiatric care in an institution. So if you ever worry your family's messed up, I guess it could be worse. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I did not think this mother-in-law was that crazy until the 5th update. When she kidnapped those children, what was she thinking? Not only I don't understand how she got away with insanity plea, because she planned the whole thing out. It was methodical. She went ahead and tricked a priest, OP, the husband, everyone, father-in-law. She tricked everyone. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this story. Let me know your thoughts about this mother-in-law. Does she add up to anywhere close to Magda, that nightmare mother-in-law from one of our previous stories? Drop your thoughts, comments down below, guys. Click that subscribe button if you want to see daily videos of some of the craziest, most dramatic stuff. And click that subscribe button, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.